I need that black tree TV. I need that black tree TV. I need that black tree TV. Black tree TV.
The thing I'm most proud of about this film is that it made young people, black and white and other colors too, think about their history in this country and what has happened, how they've been miseducated, and to go and learn things for themselves. I'm real proud of that fact.
Not too far from New York City lies the integrated middle-class suburb of Mount Vernon. There, on December 28, 1954, a star was born. His name, Denzel Washington, Jr.
Who is Denzel Washington? Denzel Washington is the leading actor of the 21st century, according to the New York Times, leading Hollywood actor of the 21st century.
If you could choose your future, where do you see yourself being in 20 years, and what kind of work do you think you'll have accomplished by then?
Oh, 20 years from now, I think I would like to see myself making films as a director, possibly as a producer, possibly, but having more control over the product I'm involved with.
You heard it here live. I should stick with acting. News at 11.
He was born into a hardworking and religious family. His father worked 2 jobs during the week, leaving hours before the kids woke up and returning after they were asleep, all to ensure that his children were raised in a financially secure environment. On Sundays, he was a Pentecostal minister who preached to his church with a passionate flair. Denzel's mother, Lennis, worked as a beautician and owned several beauty shops. She was a strict but loving mother who sang in the church choir. Denzel was the second of 3 children, and they were all raised with church and hard work at the forefront of their lives. So much so that his father only allowed the kids to see movies with biblical themes.
My father was a minister in the church. I grew up in the church. We weren't allowed to go to the movies. We saw King of Kings, 10 Commandments. That might have been about it. So I didn't grow up really watching Westerns. We had a television show in America, Bonanza. I got to see that, but I never went to the movies.
He always said that his parents were sort of mismatched, that his mother was a woman of the city and his father was a man of the country, was much more innocent than she was. I think what they had in common was they were both very religious. So his father was a Pentecostal minister and his mother was religious as well. And he grew up going to church every Sunday, at least every Sunday, and has carried through his religious belief throughout his life. And I think it accounts for some of his moral sense as an actor and his sense that in most of the films he plays someone who is on the side of good. And he said that this was his career goal, to play characters who brought something good to the world.
But when you grow up just a few streets from the Bronx, a place where only a few kids went to college and many more ended up in trouble, there's only so much sheltering a parent can do. Denzel's father was rarely around to give his son a pat on the back after a successful game, as he was usually too busy at work or at his church. In order to create a safe haven while they worked, the Washingtons sent 6-year-old Denzel and his brother David to the Boys and Girls Club after school. The Boys and Girls Club became Denzel's home away from home. There, he was encouraged to play sports and enjoy the company of other children. By the time he was 11, to keep out of mischief and to help the family's finances, Denzel joined the workforce with part-time jobs at neighborhood beauty and barber shops. Ironic as Denzel claimed to rarely have had his hair cut professionally as a child. But as Denzel entered his teens, his strong family foundation started to crumble with the news of his parents separating. His father moved to Virginia, although he continued to stay in touch with his son. Denzel remained with his mother in New York, strengthening their tight bond. But the loss of his father left Denzel confused, and he began showing signs that he might join the bad boys of the neighborhood that his parents tried so hard to keep him away from. He rebelled violently and began getting into fights at school. Concerned for his future, Denzel's mother sent him away to the Oakland Academy boarding school to straighten him out. It was a prep school made up of mostly rich white kids in upstate New York.
He ended up attending a military school, which was quite a different environment, I think, from how a lot of actors spend their kind of early years, but also I think probably helped instill this real discipline within him that we see kind of throughout his career as an actor.
Denzel was mediocre at academics, but excelled at sports. He was a talented athlete with great coordination and dreamed of becoming a famous sports star, but many of his friends thought he'd probably grow up to be a comedian. He was known to be a prankster, fool around and bring joy to his peers, a trait which he held on to as he aged. But underneath his funny facade was a kid who was actually shy and self-conscious about a gap in his front teeth. During his boarding school years, Denzel returned each summer to Mount Vernon to work at the Boys and Girls Club, doing for the kids what was once done for him. In 1972, he enrolled at Fordham University in the Bronx. He tried pre-med courses to please his mother, who wanted him to be a doctor, but he couldn't handle the curriculum and switched to journalism. But that also failed to ignite his passion. Finally, he found his true purpose when he took part in the theater production while working at a YMCA summer camp. Denzel returned to college that year with a new purpose: to be the best actor in the world. He devoted himself to learning his new craft and decided to transfer to Fordham's Theater Arts Wing in Manhattan in his senior year. In his senior year, Denzel landed the lead in a Fordham production of Othello. His performance proved he had enormous talent, and this was to be the role to change his life.
Denzel's career began at Fordham University, where initially he wasn't studying acting. He had gone in with the intention of doing something completely different, and he ended up taking some classes and becoming involved in the drama department and developing this real passion and interest for it. And he decided to change his degree, and from then on it was kind of off to the races for him. I think that once he had decided that was something that he wanted to pursue, he really took to it in a very strong manner.
He was quickly noticed by several agents and was eventually signed to play the role of the husband to Olympic gold medalist Wilma Rudolph in the 1977 television movie Wilma.
No, I never wanted to go out with no other girls. Not steady.
That's okay. You know why?
No.
Because I think we're something special.
This was Denzel's first professional break. Denzel landed the role while he was still a senior at Fordham, and it was during the filming of Wilma that a pretty young actress caught his eye on set, and the pair quickly became friends. Her name? Pauletta Pearson. She had a small part in the production, but would go on to have an enormous part in Denzel's life. Denzel graduated with a double degree in journalism and drama, and managed to get into the prestigious American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco. But after only a year, he left to test his luck in Hollywood. He arrived with just $30 in his pocket and moved in with some relatives while he looked for work. The Urban League found him a job as an acting teacher at a small private school. But what he really wanted was to perform. Denzel returned home to New York, where money was meager but work was abundant in black theater companies. Soon after, he began dating Pauletta, the woman he met while filming Wilma. Pauletta Pearson was an accomplished pianist, singer, and actress, and within a year they shared an apartment in Mount Vernon. Pauletta encouraged Denzel in his acting pursuits, and he drew a tremendous deal of strength from her. After a successful string of roles, Denzel hit a 6-month dry spell. This meant no work and no money. Acting may have fed his soul, but his stomach and the bills weren't so well replenished. By 1979, he had enjoyed a brief taste of success. He was living in his hometown, Mount Vernon, in an apartment he shared with his girlfriend Pauletta. Pauletta became a partner in his career. She had been a child prodigy. By the age of 9, she had performed as a concert pianist around the world, and now she put her career on hold and worked to support them both while he looked for acting jobs. It was an uneasy time. Denzel was ready to quit acting. He got a job at the County Department of Recreation, but Pauletta wouldn't let him give up on his dreams. Just a week before he was supposed to begin his new job, he found out he had won the role of Malcolm X in an off-Broadway production When Chickens Come Home to Roost. It paid $125 per week. Denzel immersed himself in the role. He listened to Malcolm X speeches, read his books, and even dyed his hair red.
But why did you have to be so gassy? It looks like the chickens have come home to roost. What is that? A joke? Humor? Black humor? Well, now the Nation of Islam is associated with it through you. Do you have any idea of the possible recrimination? There won't be any recriminations. Now, what I said was morally straight and sympathetic to them and to us.
He did an enormous amount of research to get ready to play the role, a practice which he continued throughout the rest of his career. Denzel's success at playing Malcolm X led to another off-Broadway role in a soldier's play. Critics praised his performance as a hot-headed Army private, and Denzel won an Obie, an off-Broadway equivalent of a Tony Award. Success led to more success, and after several triumphant stage performances in California and New York, he made his screen debut in the comedy Carbon Copy in 1981, playing the long-lost son of George Segal.
My, what a fine-looking boy. You were right, Walter. I was worried over nothing. You're just in time for dinner. Walter, will you tell Marianne that we're expecting her? Roger? We're having chicken for dinner.
I just love chicken now.
I know you do. I had Bianca prepare especially for you.
Denzel welcomed the challenge as well, the substantial money that the film role offered. By now, Hollywood was beginning to take notice of this rising star, but the studio had noticed a prominent gap in his front teeth and asked him to get it fixed. Much to Denzel's surprise, they paid for his dental work, and there he got his first taste of star treatment.
High hopes. I'm just, here for the party.
He first began to receive national attention for his work on the television drama St. Elsewhere. The television producer saw Denzel in Carbon Copy and The Soldier's Play, and wanted to cast him as Dr. Chandler. Thinking the stage was his true home, Denzel almost turned down the role, but the money was just too good to pass up. St. Elsewhere broke the mold of serial television. Set in an aging hospital with financial woes, the ensemble cast and controversial storylines were revolutionary for television. Although the show was never a huge success in terms of ratings, the critics loved it.
So St. Elsewhere was a popular American medical comedy drama, and it followed the lives of doctors and nurses and patients at this medical facility. And that's where Denzel got his big break.
In 1982, during St. Elsewhere's first season, Denzel and Pauletta moved to Los Angeles. The success of the show ended their financial struggles, and after 4 years together, the couple married in 1983 and had their first child, John David, a year later. They bought their first $1 million home in an exclusive suburb, and soon after, the Washingtons had a second child, daughter Katya. In 1983, Denzel was given a brief leave from St. Elsewhere to act in a film. Director Norman Jewison had seen him off-Broadway and wanted him to reprise his role as the brash young Army private in A Soldier's Story, a film version of the play. He felt lucky to get such a quality role. Once filming was completed, Denzel returned to St. Elsewhere. The show won 12 Emmys during its 6-year run, and Denzel was earning $30,000 per episode. His financial success allowed him to be selective in choosing his roles.
He really was able to kind of show how charismatic he was and how charming, and bring a lot of gravitas to this medical show that I think really developed a fondness between audiences and him, and set him up as someone that was developing a real sort of following within the industry.
Now a recognizable television and film star, Denzel found roles with integrity. He portrayed an inspiring real-life inner-city teacher in a television movie, The George McKenna Story, alongside Lynn Whitfield. Not long after, in 1986, a once-in-a-lifetime role came Denzel's way. Director Richard Attenborough wanted him to portray the South African activist Stephen Biko in the film Cry Freedom.
One of Denzel Washington's really early key roles was playing Steve Biko, the anti-apartheid activist in South Africa, and he is of course killed within the story. And so it sets up his career in a direction that it will go for many, many years, in which he is the kind of moral center of the story. His death stands for all of the crimes and injustice of apartheid. So it's a really important role in establishing his star persona.
To play Biko, he removed the caps from his teeth, gained 30 pounds, grew a goatee, and studied all the material he could find about the real-life freedom fighter. The role offered him the incomparable experience of shooting in Tanzania and Zimbabwe in Africa. Denzel was reportedly disappointed that several of his impassioned speeches were cut from the film. But what remained was compelling enough to prompt actor Dustin Hoffman to send Denzel a note which read simply, "What grace." Denzel believed that the film would also help to raise awareness for racial and social issues in the United States.
Cry Freedom was a film by Richard Attenborough, who is regarded as one of the great filmmakers of his generation, and it wasn't that long after the death of Martin Luther King, and this was something that would become a kind of hallmark of Denzel's career.
Being involved in a film like Cry Freedom will make the public very aware of the terrible inequities that still exist in South Africa. What about the inequities that still exist in the United States? Do you sense that this sort of takes the spotlight off of problems that are still within our society?
You mean racial problems?
Yeah.
No, I think it'll only shine more light on it. The similarities. I wouldn't, I think the problems here are more subtle, more advanced. It's not as obvious a problem as in South Africa, but you can change laws, but you can't necessarily change people's hearts and minds, and that only comes through time and constant pressure and struggle.
He received his first Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor in 1988 due to his powerful performance. He lost to the more experienced Sean Connery, who won for The Untouchables. However, Denzel did win the NAACP Image Award for his role as Stephen Biko. That same year, Denzel returned to New York to pursue his dream of acting on Broadway. He made his Broadway debut in Checkmates. The play had a successful run, but he soon returned to Hollywood. Although he was recognized as a premier actor, there just weren't many roles available for an African-American actor at the time. So, Denzel took a more aggressive approach, campaigning for roles in the British film For Queen and Country, and the lighter film The Mighty Quinn, where he played a passionate Jamaican. He was happy to have found such strong roles, but he reportedly wasn't too pleased about doing the required love scene in The Mighty Quinn with Mimi Rogers. Denzel did not want to embarrass himself or his family, and he looked so uncomfortable on film that the scene was cut entirely. While each project offered Denzel new challenges, his greatest reward was just over the horizon. He was about to star in his most significant role to date and win Hollywood's biggest prize. By the time he was 33, Denzel had already proven himself on stage, on film, and on television. He had an Oscar nomination and an NAACP award under his belt, as well as a long string of quality roles, despite the scarcity of such roles for African-American actors in Hollywood. In 1989, Denzel made the decision to portray his riskiest and most emotional role to date. It was a complete departure from the clean-cut, intelligent man he had played before. He played a freed slave fighting in the Union Army in the American Civil War film Glory.
In Glory, he plays a former slave in the United States in the 1860s who goes over to fight for the Union, to fight for the northern side against slavery. And it is a very intense film that shows his transformation from being a rebel slave to being someone who is fighting for the higher cause of the Union. And he once again is the moral center of the story because he begins as a rebel and he has to find a way of bringing himself within the power and the hierarchy of the Northern Army. At one point, he goes AWOL, and he is brought back by the Army police, and he is whipped as a punishment. Apparently, the standard punishment for going AWOL. But when they take off his shirt to whip him, you can see that his back is already covered in scars from many whippings as a slave. And so, as he's being whipped, he stares at his commanding officer, played by Matthew Broderick, with a kind of intensity and vehemence that is really his trademark as an actor. One tear falls down his cheek as to convey the pain of the whipping, but otherwise there's just this amazing intensity that he brings.
Denzel brought his family with him on location to Georgia and said it was one of the best experiences he had ever had making the film. The depth of his performance was rewarded on January 29, 1990. He won the Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actor, and in February, a nomination for an Academy Award followed.
So Denzel won his first Oscar for Glory for Best Supporting Actor, which was his second nomination. He also beat out some pretty incredible performers to win the award. He beat Marlon Brando and he beat Danny Aiello, who had starred in Do the Right Thing. But I think that the reason that performance won the Oscar is because it felt like he'd put so much of himself and so much kind of spirit and power into the performance. And I think that it really did feel like a win, that despite how young he was when he made the film, he was only kind of in his late 20s, early 30s, it was something that truly kind of resonated with audiences and felt like something new was coming through on screen.
Well, one of the scenes that had to be the toughest to do, or maybe went through your mind, would be a scene where you're whipped. Can you
Not the toughest, the simplest scene. The toughest for everyone else that day except me, because I knew exactly what I was doing, and I had the spirits of all of those people who had been whipped for real with me. You know, I started acting, 1975. I was in college, my first acting class. The teacher went around and asked everyone what they want to do, why they want to be an actor. And I said, I want to be the best actor in the world. And everybody went, oh, really? Like, who the hell does he think he is? But not only to be the best in the world, who's the best? Who's the best supporting actor? Who knows? But to be the best that I can be. And this feels like not a confirmation of that, but I know that I've been working the right way and trying to do the right